Black Brothers Podcast. Five Pillars of Mad Monolith Production.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, my dear brothers, sisters, friends, and the foes out there, and welcome to another episode of the Blood Brothers Podcast with your host, Dilly Hussain. Today's guest is someone who requires no introduction, but I'm going to give a little one anyway. And the reason why today's guest is very special is because, believe it or not, they have a fair amount of similarities with myself. They're an avid Liverpool fan. They're an avid Dirilis Ertugrul fan. A media personality, albeit in a different realm of media. But most importantly for me, a fellow Bedfordian. And not just any fellow Bedfordian, someone who was raised in the same hood as me, MK40. And that's none other than BBC Asian Network's DJ Noreen Khan. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Thank you so much for having me on.
Was that introduction okay?
Yeah, that's fine. That was great. It's really good.
How you doing?
Yeah, really good. Thank you.
Thank you for coming on.
You're very welcome. It's nice actually to record a podcast and do something like this in my own hometown of Bedford.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but Bedford holds a very special place in my heart.
Yeah.
Because I'll tell you what that is, Noreen, because if I was to say to you, who is the town's most famous 5 people, could you name them? Politicians and mayors not included.
Yeah, I mean,
There's not really, are they?
No, not
Paula
really.
Radcliffe, Matt Skeleton, the boxer.
That's true. Gosh, remember him?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's about it, isn't it?
I know. I think Harold Vorderman was born in Bedford.
Okay, well, that's it.
And then one of the Barkers, like Ronnie
Yes,
Barker,
yeah.
I think he was born in Bedford, but then they didn't obviously stay.
Exactly.
They moved on years ago.
And I guess the only other famous thing about Bedford is the Butterfly Bridge, which Salman Khan made a video, right?
Shot up a Bollywood movie.
The Cardington Hangers, right? And that's about it, right?
Yeah.
Let me kick off the mood for today's podcast. I'm going to ask you to choose one of the 2 things.
Okay.
Right? I was told that you're a vegetarian.
I am.
How's that going?
I've been vegetarian for many years now. I turned vegetarian when I was 13.
Really?
Yeah.
Are you never tempted by lamb or chicken?
Nope. I was pescatarian up until about 7 years ago.
Yeah.
So I was occasionally having fish, given that up to.
So it's just all veg now, yeah?
All vegetables.
Under?
Yeah, I'm not vegan. I'm not
Okay.
vegan. So I do occasionally have eggs and dairy products.
Yeah.
But this is something that a lot of, I think, especially my fellow Pakistanis
Yeah.
and Muslim brothers and sisters can't get their head around. They're like, you don't eat meat. How can you survive without meat? And I'm like, I've been surviving for many years actually.
No, you can definitely survive without meat.
Yeah.
And excessive consumption of meat is anyway not good or neither prophetic anyway. But how are you around big family feasts where maybe meat is being consumed?
I'm used to it now. Like if you think about it, when I go to a lot of Asian functions or Pakistani weddings, there's meat everywhere. And I'm just used to picking out the salad or the dal and anything that's vegetarian, I'm on it.
And was there ever a phase when you first became a vegetarian or pescatarian where you were kind of like, not disgusted, but a bit repulsed by meat? Did you ever go through that phase?
To be honest with you, as a child, and interestingly, my mum was vegetarian as well.
Mashallah.
So, which was very rare actually, because I think she was probably the only Pakistani woman of her age group that I knew growing up who was vegetarian. And my mum, I think, turned vegetarian when she was about 21.
Wow.
So she was pretty much a lifelong vegetarian.
What was her reasons for it? If you don't mind me asking.
I think she was a real animal lover actually, like me. So I think some of her reasons were probably ethical. And I think like me as well, she didn't like the taste of it. So I think having a vegetarian mother, I mean, none of my other siblings though are vegetarian, only me. Yeah, so I'm actually the youngest of 8. I was the only
You're the
one
youngest of 8?
Yeah.
Wow.
I was the only one that followed my mum's footsteps of becoming a veggie. Everyone else eats meat. But we're not massive meat eaters in the family either.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I'm going to present to you 2 things. You have to choose one, right? And if it's a difficult one, then you are allowed to elaborate on some of your choices. You ready?
Yeah.
Samosa or pakode?
Samosa.
Halwa or kheer?
Kheer.
Bollywood or Lollywood?
Oh, that's a tough one. I'm actually going to say... I'm going to say Bollywood because that was something that I was introduced to by my mother from the age of 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
Lollywood or Turkish industry?
I'm going to go Lollywood.
Okay. As characters of the show that you're avidly watching at the moment, whose character appeals to you more? Halima Sultan or Haymana?
Oh, definitely the mum.
Cricket or football?
Football.
If you had the opportunity to interview one of the two, who would it be? Mohamed Salah or Sadio Mane?
Mohamed Salah.
I feel a bit embarrassed to ask you this, and we actually spoke about it very briefly before we started filming. If you had to choose to live in one of the two areas, would it be Queen's Park or Bury Park?
Oh, definitely Queen's Park.
Why do you think people make that comparison? Have you ever heard that comparison?
To be honest with you, not really. But I mean, I can see why people make that comparison because I think Bedford and Luton are the same place.
Yeah.
Well, actually, there's like 19 miles that divides us.
Of course.
We are not the same place.
Yeah.
We are different towns.
Yeah.
We just happen to fall under Bedfordshire.
Yeah. Urdu or Punjabi as a language?
Punjabi.
Okay. Now, I know you've visited India before, right?
Yeah, twice.
Have you visited Bangladesh?
No.
If you had the choice to visit one of the two countries again, I won't be offended. would you choose to visit India or Bangladesh?
Probably India again.
I'm offended.
I'm just being honest. Only because I've made some really good friends out there now, and I don't get to see them very often. So
Okay.
and to be honest with you, India is so vast.
It is.
I mean, I've only seen a tiny amount of it, but it is something that in the future I'd like to go and explore more of. Same with Pakistan and hopefully one day Bangladesh as well.
Wicked. I'm going to tell you that new producer head of production that you just said that. TikTok or Insta?
Insta.
Books or TV?
Books.
Okay. Let's say it was TV. Netflix or Amazon Prime?
Netflix.
If you recall the two newspapers of Bedford, do you remember what the two newspapers of Bedford were?
Times and Citizen.
And?
Beds on Sunday.
Did you ever read any of them?
I used to read Beds on Sunday religiously.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was basically where
you started, right?
Yeah, where I started.
Yeah.
I got my training and everything. Okay. Stand-up comedy or radio hosting?
Radio is my first love.
And last but not least, if you think back at memories of childhood and growing up, do you remember more fondly memories of Westfield Middle School or Bidnam Upper School?
Westfield.
Yeah?
Yeah, I loved Westfield. I was there for 4 years, because obviously we have a different tier system here.
Yeah.
We used to have lower, middle and upper.
Until very recently.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I loved my time at Bidnam, but I think it's always more personal, isn't it? When you're younger, and you kind of know your class teachers a lot better, and there's less pupils in the whole school, and it's just more of an intimate experience, I think. So, I loved my time at Westfield.
Wicked. So that was it. I hope none of them were too difficult for you to choose.
No, that was fine.
Wicked.
Yeah.
Right, now let me start with Bedford to the Beeb. Now I know that's a huge journey and not one which we can necessarily cover in the space of 45 minutes to an hour. But how did you go from studying, what was it, sociology and English? What did you study in A-levels? Sociology?
So I actually did English, sociology, politics and business studies.
Wicked. And from that point, where did it end up to the Beeb? What happened? What was happening between you with the Beeb and you leaving sixth form? A lot must have happened.
A lot did happen, actually. And I think the reason why I did eventually gravitate towards radio was my love of music.
Okay.
Because from the age of 8, I played quite a few instruments.
Okay.
So I started off with the violin.
Okay.
And then when I went to Westfield, I took up the oboe.
Okay.
And then I was in the steel band for 5 yees. So carried on the steel band in Bidnam.
I played the violin.
Did you?
But you know why I played the violin?
Why?
Just so I could take it home and do this.
I think it treat it like a guitar.
Yeah, treat it like a guitar.
But do you remember, back in the day,
Steel band was huge.
It was massive.
Steel band
And
was
we
huge.
played at the River Festival. We went to BBC Three Counties. That was the first time, actually, I'd ever been into a radio studio, was through playing steel band, and I used to play the tenor. So, yeah, I had great memories, actually, of playing in the steel band. But it was my love of music that I think eventually took me to radio. But I did many things in between, like A-levels. I didn't go uni.
You didn't go uni?
No, I didn't go uni. People find this quite surprising, actually. I never wanted to. I was quite keen to get into the world of work, and I'm a very hands-on person, and I don't know, the thought of 4 years of studying just didn't appeal to me. even though I think my family expected me to go uni. My sister and my brother had been, and all my friends were going. But I think I wanted this maybe slightly unconventional path of just working. I just wanted to get out into the world of work. I wanted to experience what it was like working.
Was it work and this as well?
And money, obviously, yeah. I was very independent even from a young age. So I thought, I don't want to ask mum and dad for money anymore. I want to earn my own money because that way I can spend it exactly how I want to. I don't have to justify where I'm spending the money. So, then world of work happened and I went into a bank when I was 19. So it was 2 years I spent in a bank.
Not to rob it.
No, not to rob it. But I realised, a lot of these jobs, I did them and I enjoyed them, but they weren't really me.
Okay.
I even worked at the Inland Revenue. I worked for the Benefits Agency. And then I went and worked in Luton as a learning mentor.
Okay.
At Icknield High School. So I was there for a few years. And whilst I was doing that, I was also dabbling in radio.
Which radio?
So I started off actually. So I decided I wanted to become a radio presenter, and this all happened also whilst I had my own business. I don't know if you remember, I used to have a small boutique.
You did indeed.
I did here in Queens.
Noreen's Boutique.
Called Noreen's Boutique.
Noreen's Boutique.
And whilst I was in there, it was just to sell like clothes and material and stuff. I used to have the radio on all the time, and the radio just became my friend.
Yeah.
Because I spent a lot of time on my own in there. And then when I used to listen to the radio, I've been listening to the radio as a child. I always thought it was a really fun job to do.
Okay.
I thought this seems like a great job. They play records and they talk, and people call in, and it just seems like a really fun job.
Yeah.
I'd quite like to do this. So I thought, wonder how I do this, because I didn't do any sort of degree in media studies or journalism. So I just went online and thought, okay, let me see what other presenters, what journeys they took. And I realised a lot of them had started off doing hospital radio. And I thought, what's hospital radio? So I contacted Bedford Hospital and I said, look, do you have a radio station within your hospital? And they went, yeah, we do. I said, can I come and volunteer? Because if you apply there, you won't get paid. It's always voluntary work.
Yeah.
So what happens is, when a lot of people don't realise, when patients have been in hospital for a while, especially the elderly patients, somebody will go around and say, what song do you want to hear? And
to uplift their morale.
That's right. So they have their own little radio stations
Yeah.
within big hospitals that play music for the patients.
So Bedford Southwing had one?
Yeah.
Wow.
So I went there for a few weeks, and it was quite fascinating just going into a little studio and seeing all of these, like, literally they had vinyls all across the wall and loads of CDs. I only did that for a couple of months. And then my sister knew that I wanted to get into radio. She said, hey, I've just heard an advert on Sunrise Radio. They're looking...
Sunrise Radio.
Yeah, so Sunrise Radio, as we know, is a, infamous, very old school radio station that's been going for years. One of the pioneers, actually,
of course, absolutely.
of Asian radio over in Southall in London. She said they just put an advert out saying they're looking for young people to join a new station, that they're starting a digital station, because digital radio came about in 2002. But this was 2003 or 4. And she said, why don't you apply? I said, oh, okay, then I'll ring them up and see what they say. Yeah. And then said, right, send us a demo and tell us why you want to work in radio. And I said, okay. So I literally just recorded myself talking and sent it to them. And they called me in for an interview. And then next thing I know, they said, okay, we're piloting quite a few of you. You can use our radio studios on the weekend. And then we're going to, from 36, we're going to chop it down to like 15 people.
Okay.
So I was like, okay. And luckily I was one of the 15 that was chosen. They gave me this weekend show, and to be honest, I didn't really know what I was doing. But I had some guidance from, some of the experienced presenters from Sunrise, and they just kind of guided us and said, right, do this, do that, and make it your own. And I just kind of made it my own.
Noreen's Boutique was done by then, right?
Yeah, it was all done.
Okay.
I'd done that for 3 years. I was just like flitting from one thing to the other, but I was still doing learning mentoring in Luton.
Yeah.
That's whilst I was doing radio. And then I did that for literally 6 months. And then another new station launched called Club Asia.
I don't remember that.
Right, so Club Asia was the first of its kind. It was the first Asian radio station for young people that was going to play Asian and non-Asian music. And it was all London-based. And it was the first station marketed for young Asians. Because what they realised was, the younger generation had different listening habits to what their parents were listening to, who predominantly just wanted Bollywood or, Lollywood or pure Asian music. But obviously, young people growing up were listening to R&B, hip-hop, pop, alternative Asian music. And this station was giving everything. It was giving all of that in one place. I applied there and I got a job. And that's where
You're just landing these jobs, one after another, yeah?
Well, you know, maybe I'm making it sound easy, but obviously you have to go in and you've got to go for an interview process. You have to send in demos. If they like it, they call you in. And then I landed a weekend show at Club Asia and I ended up staying there for 3 and a bit years. And then I got headhunted by Asia Network.
Smashed it.
That's how I went to BBC.
So let me just super recap it, right? A levels, didn't go uni.
No.
Independent, went to work, make the cheddar. Done a few little jobs here and there. Noreen's Boutique, the mentoring in Luton, Hospital Radio, Sunrise Radio, Club Asia, and then the Beeb.
Yeah.
Was that accurate?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. So that's how I ended up at the BBC.
What year did they headhunt you?
I think it was 2007.
2007. Wow,
Yeah.
so you've been there for 13 years.
Yeah, I've been there 13 years now.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, just staying on the topic of media, right? Obviously, when I opened this podcast, I said that we both are within the media industry, albeit different sectors and areas. However, there is a huge discussion about Muslim representation in the media, institutional racism in the mainstream media, institutional Islamophobia in the mainstream media, just the general depiction of Muslims and people of colour in mainstream media. And just to take perhaps the most two recent examples, there's the whole kind of migrant crisis that has re-emerged again. We've been seeing with COVID-19 for some reason or another, and by the way, I don't want to get you fired by the Beeb here, so by all means keep your statements generic. I'm going to be the naughty one here, right? But the mainstream media for some reason or another have been using Muslim coloured imagery for COVID-19 stories when it's been Asian/Muslims and people of colour who've been making some of the biggest sacrifices during the pandemic. So there's a huge discussion, and has been for some while now, about Muslim Asian representation in the media. Now, because you have found yourself within a niche area of media which is dedicated to Asian and people of colour, have you ever yourself experienced or sensed or observed any kind of what can I say? Not necessarily racism, but any kind of like double standards or two-tier treatment. Have you ever experienced this whilst doing your media journey?
What? Just generally?
Just generally, just
from
generally.
my employers
Yeah,
and.
yeah.
To be honest with you, I mean, I can't really pinpoint and say, yeah, this has really happened to me, because I think I've been quite fortunate in the sense that I'm such a sort of focused person. I don't think I've ever even really thought about it and thought, oh, I didn't get that job maybe because they didn't like the colour of my skin. I don't think that was ever the case.
Okay.
I've pretty much just gone for what I needed to go for and have done the things that I needed to do.
Okay.
I can't particularly say anybody ever didn't give me work because of my ethnicity, my religion, my gender.
So let's put Noreen out of the equation. What about, have you yourself observed certain media representations of people of colour, of Pakistanis, of Muslims, which hasn't sat with you right, without necessarily naming any outlets? I mean, do you think that Muslims are represented well in the mainstream media?
I mean, to be honest with you, I think there's a lack of us.
Yeah.
I think this is one of the big issues here. There is a lack of, I think, Muslim people, whether it be in media, or even in some other industries. But I always think that's, some of that is actually down to the fact that, I mean, you'll relate to this. Growing up, I think in a lot of Muslim households, going into media is not something that's going to be encouraged.
No, it's not lawyer, pharmacist, doctor, dentist.
Absolutely.
Did you face opposition or any kind of critique or anything when you got into this?
No, I mean, I'm very fortunate that my parents have always been, they were very liberated people in the sense that they were very proud of their roots. They were very religious as well, but they never kind of, put any restrictions on us in the sense. And they always said, if that's what you're really passionate about and, you'll work an honest day's work and, you genuinely want to do that because you love that field of work you want to get into, go for it. And when I told my mum and dad that I want to do radio, from kind of doing jobs like being in a bank and, doing, I suppose, admin type jobs, they didn't oppose it at all. My mum was just like, she knew I loved music because I used to play in a steel band and I loved music at school. So she was like, if that's what you want to do it, just don't, she says, don't sort of maybe stress yourself out too much if it doesn't happen. I think that was a nice way of saying if you're not successful, don't be too hard on yourself.
Fair enough.
So I was very lucky, I think, that I had very understanding parents and that encouraged me on the journey. At the same time, they didn't get too involved either. They were like, you do your thing, we know you'll be fine.
Okay, but so I mean, without forcing you into getting any kind of positions out of you, but look, you're in the media, and whilst I appreciate you within a niche aspect of the media, which is the Asian Muslim kind of, I'm not Asian music kind of thing, right? Do you read the newspapers? Do you read news?
I mean, to be honest with you, I consume my news from Twitter, and I think mainly websites and social media. I don't actually sit and watch the news anymore.
That's standard though. That's where 8%
I never sit and watch.
Yeah.
I don't even know. Is it still the 9 o'clock?
Yeah, 10 o'clock.
I don't even know, because I mean, Twitter has just news gets on there faster than any other place.
Yeah, social media and
you just
Twitter
see what's
specifically.
trending and you know
That's
exactly
it.
what's just happened. So
Yeah.
I mean, that's where I get my news from.
Do you see yourself staying within music in the foreseeable future?
I mean, primarily, yes, I'm a music DJ and, I'm in broadcasting. But I don't know if that is something that because I've done it for quite a long time now. But I don't know if that is something that I will stay in for years and years to come. I mean, in future, actually, I mean, haven't sort of quite worked out where I'm going to be heading. But
Am I correct to understand that you do want to start doing some stand-up comedy?
I've already started it.
How's it going?
I've been doing it for 3.5 years. It's a very different form of expression for me, because working on radio, on the BBC, you have to be very, very mindful about what you say. But I find through comedy, I mean, you still have certain limitations, and I'm not the kind of comedian that's going to go out to offend people for the sake of offending them.
Yeah.
That's not my style of comedy. Mine's just more observational and relatable stuff that I think people my audience at the moment is primarily, Asians that come out to see my comedy. I think it's just given me a different kind of way of expressing myself. I mean, you might not know, but I've been doing tours. So they're called Ladies of Laughter.
Okay.
So I did the first one in 2017.
How was that?
And it went fantastically, because I realised there was a real gap in the market, actually. So what I did was I put together this whole brand of Ladies of Laughter. So I have all women of colour on, not just women of colour, actually. So I have black, Arab, white, mixed race, Indian, Pakistani, Bengali, you name it. But we're all women. So I have different women on every different show. But, the audience is not just women. Everyone's welcome, but generally it's women that come to see our shows.
Okay.
So I realised that this was something that was quite empowering, actually, especially for women of colour in comedy. Because, again, comedy is very saturated and dominated by men, especially tends to be white middle-class men.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of brown comedians, black and Asian, are breaking through
But
even
then
again, it's more men.
Yeah. So what I have found is, so does your comedy have any red lines?
Yeah, I mean, they do in some sense, because I always feel that I still have some sense of responsibility towards my followers, towards my audience. And whilst I'm obviously still working on the BBC, I'm not going to be doing things that will bring it into disrepute, because, that's something that I won't do.
Yeah. When you said there just isn't enough Muslims or Asian Muslims, let's specifically look at Muslims in the mainstream media, right? And perhaps more representation would help, perhaps, the coverage of how Muslim-related stories are reported upon, right? How would you respond to a kind of counterclaim that, look, we've tried, we've it's not bore any fruit, the political climate is just too strong for whatever reasons, right? And you're quite restricted in terms of trying to deliver grassroots news, right? For example, I mean, we can cite some examples. We've got Fatima Manji in Channel 4 doing a fantastic job. We have Ragay Omar. We have Faisal Ahmed in Sky News. We've got some prominent Muslim names, but they're far and few between, right? And how would you respond to those who say that, look, Noreen, we've tried, and we just feel that our voice would be more amplified and honest if it was to be independent? Do you think there's a space for independent media for Muslims, as opposed to seeking careers in the mainstream as a way to perhaps change our perception and coverage?
No, I think, assimilation, and actually, I don't think we should segregate ourselves. And me personally, I think it is about assimilation, and we need to try and work together. And if anyone says, so when you're saying, we've tried, are you talking about mainstream media saying we've tried with Muslims?
No, the other way around.
Oh, the other way around.
Muslims saying that, look, we tried.
Oh, okay,
we
right.
tried breaking
Yeah, no,
through the
and I think, yes, why can't we have both? Because, already that there are sort of, independent, I think, TV channels and radio stations and websites like yourself and podcasts that are representing Muslims. But I still think it's very important that
to have both.
Absolutely. I think, because this is where I think we start segregating ourselves and not assimilating and going, right, we're just going to do our own thing. This is where misunderstandings, and this is where, moving forward, we need to get on as a society. It can't be them and us.
Of course, absolutely.
Yeah.
Just before we move into our next topic for today's podcast, right? You used the interesting word assimilate, right? What I've experienced is the word assimilate and integrate is conflated very commonly. So integration, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Noreen. Integration is something that we should be doing. I think Muslims and Asians have done it quite successfully, to be honest. If you look at every sector and every industry, generally speaking, you'll find Muslims, Asians, people of color thriving in those industries. Assimilation, however, right? I promise I'm not trying to educate you on anything. Okay. But assimilation, it has the connotation that you have to conform with compromise. I think that's the issue.
Yeah.
I mean, integration. I'm all for integration.
Yeah.
And we should be integrating.
Yeah.
That's how any successful, thriving society would run. Is integration. It's a give and take between various demographics and constituencies within a society. Yeah. Assimilation, however, it has that feeling that.
But to some extent, we all have to conform in some way or another.
True.
Like I, being a broadcaster, I have to conform in some ways. Do you see what I mean? I mean, I can't go on radio and just say what I want.
Of course, you have to conform to whatever the beeps.
Absolutely.
Exactly,
so you have to conform. You've got to stick to certain guidelines.
Yeah.
I mean, and that is a path that I choose to take. So it's not anything that I'm complaining about.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm coming from that kind of mindset that you have to conform in the sense like, I can't be of a certain mindset and then go, well, I don't agree with what my, employer is saying, because then that's just not going to gel. It's not going to work. So in some ways I have to, in some ways conform, I suppose, to what the guidelines are in order to do my job properly. Do
you ever think that there could be for some, not for yourself, well, maybe, but that's conformity also has red lines. There may come a time where you think I'm not talking about Noreen here. I'm talking about generally speaking, those that may think, okay, fine, I'm happy to conform. I'm happy to conform to Ofcom's regulation, the Beebs or Skies or someone's editorial guidelines, the general take on how they perceive things. But there could come a time where that level of conformity doesn't sit well. And therefore they may pursue a different career, a different path, which is more independent.
I mean, that's happened with people before, I mean, sometimes, there was just recently, actually, I know he's not Muslim, but Sideman, who left to be One Extra.
Yeah.
He's a black presenter, and he left because the N-word went out on a news bulletin that was shown on telly.
Wow.
By the BBC. And this was everywhere at the moment. And
how long ago was this? I missed this.
This was 2-3 weeks. Well, I think the N-word went out on a news piece about a month, or just under a month ago.
Okay.
And then, One Extra presenter who's called Sideman.
Okay.
It didn't sit right with him, so he decided to leave.
Wow. Interesting.
I mean, I know that's not, but it's just an example of sometimes if somebody doesn't feel comfortable with what's
being aired,
happening, that's right. Some people do feel strongly about certain things, and will.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Bringing the podcast to a close, you're a big fan of Dirilis Ertugrul, right?
Yes.
What season are you in?
I've nearly finished season 2.
Shall I tell you who dies?
No.
Please.
I don't want to know. I don't want any spoilers. You see, I love tweeting about it, but what I hate is when sometimes people start tweeting me spoilers and go, oh, he dies in season 3. He dies in... And I'm like, I don't want to know. I don't want to know, because a lot of my friends are watching it now. and they're still on season 1, and I would never say to them, "Oh
Okay.
gosh, this happens," because come on, nobody likes spoilers.
Okay. How are you finding the show?
I'm loving it.
How did it come to your attention?
It came to my attention through one of my colleagues actually at the BBC who was watching it about 3-4 years ago, soon after it had aired in Turkey. And he kept saying to me, "Noreen, you really need to watch this." And it was literally on my list of things to watch. But as you can imagine, through the research that I do for my radio show, and just generally I'm interested in lots of different, genres of TV and film. And I thought, okay, Turkish TV is something that I need to explore at some point. And I've heard lots about Ertugrul, and I'm going to watch it at some point. And then I think lockdown happened.
Yeah.
With a lot of us, and then we
Prime time to make up,
So
yeah?
I used to go out and do loads and loads of hosting and comedy shows. All of that stopped since March. Then I realised I've actually got time on my hands now. I'm only just doing my radio show. I thought I'm going to start it.
Yeah.
So I started it around 2-3 months ago, and hooked.
What was your biggest binge period?
It's still going on.
How many episodes have you watched in one sitting?
About 7.
Smashed it.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I obviously then, did Engin's interview.
Yeah.
So I think that was probably the first UK interview that he
That
might
was
have done.
you were the first British broadcaster to speak to Engin Altan Duziyatan.
Engin Altan, I'm so excited to be finally having this chat with you. Many of my listeners are huge fans of this historical Turkish series, Ertugrul. So welcome to the BBC Asian Network. How are you?
Hello. I am very well, thank you, Noreen. I hope you are good too.
I'm very well, thank you. Now, we know this show has become a massive hit globally, especially since it's been shown on Netflix. So when you were filming, did you ever think that it would kind of get the attention and the love and the praise that it's currently receiving?
When we were filming, we knew from the beginning it was going to be a memorial series. However, this much attention, even I didn't imagine. We are grateful.
I know so many people now, after watching the series, who've never been to Turkey before but are really intrigued and want to now go and visit the country. So this series has certainly boosted tourism for Turkey.
Yeah, we know for a fact Turkish popularity increased after the TV series, so which is great news. We are really glad.
So the series has recently been dubbed in Urdu. It's being shown in Pakistan. It's breaking records there. What do you think makes this series connect with the Pakistani audience so much?
I think both Turkish people and Pakistani people love well-crafted stories. Turkish series are successful at conveying touchy sense of drama to the audience.
Playing the lead role of Ertugrul Ghazi, what qualities in him do you admire the most?
I love Ertugrul Ghazi's vision, strength, purpose in life, and all of his values. He's an admirable person. I'm really happy that I could portray his life.
And finally, what would you like to say to all of your fans here?
Hello, England. I hope you liked Dirilis Ertugrul. Please keep watching. Thank you very much. Yeah, and I think I think it probably was, and obviously that video's gone viral, and I think the reason why it's gone viral so quickly is because it's airing in Pakistan. And it's being dubbed in Urdu, and they're watching it there, and I think it's being aired in 37 countries now.
37 countries, Middle East, Africa, Bangladesh.
Phenomenal, isn't it? It's just phenomenal, and it's just so. I think it's just so refreshing to see a show which shows Muslims in a really positive light. They are the protagonists, and I think the show's quite informative as well, because a lot of my non-Muslim friends, since I've been talking about it, are watching it, and I think it's quite insightful for them as well to learn about, of not just the journey of,
concepts
of Turkish
of
history,
justice,
and about Islam as well.
Sharia, jihad.
Absolutely,
because these are things like, I mean, if you were to just take sensationalist headlines as your main source of information for Islam, you'd think that things like Sharia and justice and jihad and these things are like, really medieval, scary. But I think the show does a fantastic job in and the truth of the matter is, putting the dramatization aside, that I think that's quite an accurate representation of how the early Kayi tribe and many other Turkic tribes historically operated. And why do you think it blew up so much in Pakistan? Like literally smashed records.
Well, I actually asked this question to Engin as well, and he says because like the Turkish audience, he said the Pakistani audience like well-crafted stories.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know if I'm not comparing it to Pakistani dramas, but Pakistani dramas are hugely successful because they're really well written. They do like, well-crafted stories, and they are quite successful. They're on Netflix now. There's a massive audience for them globally. So it's not just people in Pakistan that watch Pakistani dramas. I mean, because I talk about them on my show. And then I have people from Malaysia, Australia, Canada, you name it, all over the world that email me saying, oh, I've started watching Pakistani dramas and they're amazing. They're really good. So there's obviously, there's a massive appetite, I think, for something like Ertugrul, not just in Pakistan, but all over the world, because it is so refreshing and it's just something very different for us.
Would you say that because for at least the best part of 20 years, whenever you see Hollywood movies, even Bollywood, sadly,
the depiction of Muslims is always generally negative.
Criminal villains, terrorists,
Absolutely.
Nothing really positive.
No.
And if it's not villain or criminal, then it's oppressed, need rescuing, and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Don't you think that plays a huge role in the success of Dirilis Ertugrul?
Definitely, I think it really does, because again, this show is, about Muslims, and it's showing them in these in a really positive light, and it's something that we're not really accustomed to.
Did you find certain parts of the show informative for yourself? I know many born Muslims who watched the show were like, wow, I didn't know that's how certain aspects of Sharia is implemented, or I didn't know that's how some of the laws and guidelines of military engagement worked. And
I mean, I'm only 2 seasons in at the moment, but I mean, I'm finding it very. I think it's just fascinating learning about Turkish history, actually, because I didn't know. I mean, we all know bits about the Ottoman Empire, but I didn't know. But obviously, this takes on a journey of how it came about, and so that's fascinating for me.
There's lots of other shows like that. So you got Kurulus Osman,
which follows on, doesn't it?
Which follows on. So
Yeah.
that's the story of Ertugrul's son. Who found the state. There's another one called Peytat Abdul Hamid, which is more towards just before First World War. There's loads of sections, so I really recommend you to watch some of them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, this is my entry now into Turkish TV. And
I'm going to ask you a final question, right?
Okay.
And I think every Muslim who's in the public sphere, irrespective of what their respective industry is, they will always get DMs and messages from fellow Muslims either praising them or criticizing them, right? Telling them...
The haram police is out regularly.
Do you get that?
Yeah, of course. Of course.
And
luckily, I mean, I don't get it as much as I hear other people talk about it.
Yeah.
Generally, I think I've been very fortunate that a lot of my followers have been pretty cool with me. Okay. But I do obviously get I get a lot of questions, actually, more about my personal life. Why aren't you married?
Oh, God.
Yeah, how come you're still not married? Why do you promote Indian music? Why do you promote Bollywood films? Occasionally I get a little bit of that, but me personally, I think I get more questions. And yeah.
How do you deal with it?
You become very thick-skinned when you've been working in media for a long. And luckily, I mean, I'm not fazed by any of it, to be honest with you. And we have block buttons, which are brilliant.
Wicked. And have you ever had anyone from the Haram police who have conveyed their grievances or concerns in a sisterly or brotherly way, in a polite way, or is it always?
Well, like I said, I mean, it's generally, I don't get like lectures, or it's generally just another thing I must say is it's men.
Okay.
I can't think of a time ever where a woman has messaged me trying to tell me that I'm not living in, what they perceive as the correct way of living. It's generally comes from men, and always comes from men.
Okay.
Who I think feel some kind of entitlement that they need to tell a sister, even though some of them don't call me sister, or just tell another fellow Muslim, a woman, that she's not living in the way that they perceive to be correct. So there is a lot of entitlement amongst men, I find, towards women like myself.
Okay. Noreen, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed the podcast.
I did. It was interesting.
But we're not done yet.
Okay.
So basically, with all our guests, we tend to present challenges to the guests. Obviously, when we have females, we have to tailor the challenges a bit more uniquely because obviously the gender differences. And then the reason why is so usually we offer our guests an arm wrestle.
Oh, okay.
Or a thumb war. Or, Mohsin, you want to do the honours?
Oh, not chilies.
No, not chili. Hold on.
I can see chilies.
Hold on. Okay, fine. There's a choice here, Noreen.
Okay.
So obviously, Blood Brothers podcast with me and Aki, my brother who's not here. We are Bengalis.
Barn. Is this barn?
Yes. So you have a choice here. You have a choice. We got naga. You heard of naga before?
No.
So we have. You can try a bit of naga sauce. It is spicy.
Okay.
It's also very tasty. Or you have to try some barn.
I'll try the barn.
Do you trust me to make it for you? I'll make it small and sweet.
Yes. Is it beetle juice?
Beetle leaf. Beetle nut.
Okay.
Don't worry, you'll be fine.
Okay, I'll try a bit.
So you're chickening out of that, yeah?
Yeah, I'm not. Like, I love spices and love chili, but too much just burns the mouth.
Okay, so you got Barney there. Mostly, you get tissue from Noreen just in case.
Just in case I throw up.
Just in case.
Thank you.
I will make it sweet for you. It's just something that we do for our guests.
Okay, so this is
we
a traditional barn that you're...
it's a traditional palm. But the thing is, Pakistanis do have it, but I found Loris have it a lot more.
Okay.
It's not necessarily... Where are you from, Pakistan, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, we're from the Punjab as
Punjab,
well.
yeah. So Loris tend to have it a lot more, whereas I don't think it's something that's common amongst Kashmiris, and obviously being from... It's predominantly Kashmiris here, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, and they tend to have mitta pan a lot, right? Whereas Bengalis have a far more variation, which is tobacco based. And no, you look scared.
No, I'm not scared. I'm just wondering what that is.
What
is that? What is that?
So this is a leaf.
Yeah.
This is a type of nut.
Oh, okay.
And this is called Jaman Bahar. It's really sweet. It's rose petal.
Oh.
I'm going to make it sweet for you. You don't have to pretend that you like it.
And I mean, I'm a real novice. I mean, I've never really tried barn. So do I just eat the whole thing?
Okay, hold on.
No.
So you put it in your mouth.
On the side?
On the side. And you just chew it.
Oh, okay.
And if it gets too much for you, there's tissue. There's the water. What do you think?
Very sweet.
Yeah? There should be a bit of bitterness kicking in very soon, no?
It's nice, actually.
Really?
Is it does it sort of freshen your breath as well? Because
this
feels like...
This does. But obviously there's other variations. So there's a tobacco variation, there's a white jana variation, and they can get you a bit mush up. But obviously I was never going to give that to you. I don't think our viewers and listeners would be too happy if I gave you the stronger brand of barn.
Well, I'll probably get knocked out.
Yeah, get knocked out.
I mean, do people tend to put tobacco in it as well sometimes?
They do. So it's very popular amongst Bengalis that they put like dry tobacco in, and that does give you a bit of a head rush. Pakistani, they do. Have you heard of Naswar?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a similar kind of thing.
Inside of the mouth.
It's put inside of the mouth. Yeah. So it's a similar kind of thing. What do you think?
Yeah, it's nice.
You ready to spit it out?
I think so. Yeah.
Right. So whilst Noreen is getting rid of the barn, I'll bring today's podcast to a close. I hope you all enjoyed it. I hope you all enjoyed a bit of a refreshing and different guest on today's podcast. Like the video, subscribe to the 5 Pillars YouTube channel. If you want to listen to this podcast on the audio channel, search The Mad Mumlooks. Like the video, share the video, leave a comment, subscribe. And until next time, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Blood Brothers podcast. 5 Pillars of Mad Monolith production.